Hello, my name is Fiona, and today I'll be presenting my oral report on Frigid Pink, SRC, and Grand Funk Railroad. To set the scene, the band scene in 1960s in Detroit was the product of Motown and soul music blasting out of Detroit and the British invasion bands led by the Beatles. Each of the bands I talk about today not only showcase this influence, but also helped develop rock music in Detroit. First off, we have Frigid Pink, which is an American psychedelic blues rock band formed in Detroit, Michigan in 1967. Over on the right here, we have Rick Stevers, who is the first member we're going to be talking about today. Rick Stevers was the drummer for Frigid Pink. Up on the top left is a picture of a phonograph, also known as a gramophone, which is a music recording device. Rick was actually first introduced to music when he was gifted a phonograph by his grandpa, and he would listen to Nat King Cole as a kid. Rick was bullied growing up because he was the son of a police officer, and he never quite fit in his suburban town. I think the societal pressures of needing to fit in and Rick's love for music is what inspired the idea of a band. Rick and Tom Harris started a cover band in 1964 called the Detroit Vibrations. The band was managed and transported to gigs by Rick's parents, Clyde and Clara Stevers. On the lower left is a picture of the original Detroit Vibrations, which from left to right consisted of Carrie, Dayton, Rick Stevers, Tom Harris, Bill O'Reilly, Tim Macknick, and Dan Mason. The band ended up gaining some traction. After Kelly Green and Gary Thompson joined, the band started playing originals and they decided they needed a change of name. Rick's mom had suggested naming the band Frosted Pinks, but Tom Harris's sister stepped in, saw the refrigerator, and revised the band name to Frigid Pink. I guess the name stuck. Rick's dating life actually played a role in making Frigid Pink a popular band, but we'll get to that later. Next up, we have Tom Harris, which is the bassist for Frigid Pink. Like Stevers, Harris started playing music in the school band. Harris actually was Rick Stevers' neighbor, and when he got a guitar at 13, he was invited to a jam session with Stevers' band as the bass guitarist. Tom Harris played with Frigid Pink until 1974. Here's Kelly Green, which was Tom Beaudry's stage name. Tom Beaudry, aka Kelly Green, and Gary Thompson were a part of the founding of Frigid Pink as well. So they actually showed up at a venue the Detroit Vibrations were performing at and convinced Rick Stevers' dad that they were better than the guys they had on stage. Kelly Green ended up landing himself a gig as the vocalist for the Detroit Vibrations and eventually Frigid Pink. Kelly Green was Frigid Pink's vocalist until 1970. Here's Gary Ray Thompson, who was the guitarist for Frigid Pink until 1970. Gary had more interest in rock sound as opposed to the R&B that Harris and Stevers were used to listening to. It was this foundation in R&B that Frigid Pink often booked some of the bigger named acts who would appear at teen clubs promoting their recent releases. It is their ability to back other artists that led Frigid Pink to their first recording contract. Frigid Pink's first two singles, Tell Me Why and Drivin' Blues, were not very popular, but things soon changed. The band had time left over on their recording session and Pioneer Studios, and they were asked if they had anything else ready to record. So they tried a hard rock cover version of the old folks blues song, House of the Rising Sun, which, as we know, is recorded and popularized by the Animals in 1964. This is where Stevers' dating life came into play. So Stevers was dating the daughter of Paul Cannon, the program director at WKNR, and played him the studio tapes that they had. Cannon listened to House and thought, hey, this could totally be a hit, and suggested that the band put out House of the Rising Sun. After playing House of the Rising Sun on Detroit's WKNR in January of 1970, it hit the Billboard Hot 100. The song that the band had recorded with their extra recording time earned Frigid Pink the first gold record ever awarded to a Detroit hard rock band. The song was an international sensation too, reaching number 3 in Canada, number 4 in the UK, and number 1 in Germany. Parrot released the band's first album, Frigid Pink, with this cool pink and black graphic in the wake of the single's success. The popularity of Frigid Pink's distorted, guitar-driven rendition of The House of the Rising Sun helped develop a universal love for rock and blues, as well as launch the Frigid Pink's career. The band was on the road constantly, touring not only in the US, but Canada and Australia as well. The band followed their hit with Sing a Song of Freedom, their album Defrosted, and a cover of Heartbreak Hotel. But these songs just didn't do as well as Frigid Pink's cover of The House of the Rising Sun. In 1970, Gary Ray Thompson and Kelly Green caused a bit of drama by leaving Frigid Pink. I guess the two didn't like the direction the band was going and left Stevers and Harris, which totally derailed Frigid Pink's plan for tour. They had hopes of the single Music for the People, but that didn't happen, and cost the band their record label. After auditioning new musicians, Frigid Pink's lineup included Harris and Stevers, along with keyboardist Larry Zelenka, John Wearing on lead vocals, and Craig Webb on guitar and vocals. Next up, we have SRC, or Scott Richard Case Band, a Detroit rock band from the late 1960s. From the left, we have Steve Lyman on rhythm guitar and vocals, Gary Quackenbush, the lead guitarist, Glenn Quackenbush, the organist, Scott Richardson, the vocalist, and E.J. Clausen on drums. SRC had a very distinct sound, mixing R&B, psychedelic rock, and Detroit-style hard rock. A few, including myself, argue that Quackenbush's lead guitar style really elevated the band's music. Quackenbush used feedback and expressive solos to create a range of sound from melodic, passive music to chaotic, angry music. His guitar style reflected the influence of Jimi Hendrix, a guitar legend of the time. I'll play you a clip of Quackenbush at Symphony Hall when he was 66 during an SRC reunion, so you can get a feel for what I mean. as you can see, Gary Quackenbush's talent allowed him to go from this slow melodic music to this crazy upbeat music to rock and roll in the same song. SRC was unique because the members brought their own background of classical and R&B music into the rock and roll style music that they played. SRC's first performance in Fenton, Michigan was where they played their rendition of I'm So Glad by Cream. SRC's version of the song was different because it had more feel and energy. The guitar was more of a raw sound. The lyrics were sung with soul, and Quackenberg's solo had this fuzzed out effect that was super cool. The song was so popular at the event that it was put as the A-side of the first Scott Richard Case single, with Who Is That Girl as the B-side. This recording of I'm So Glad became a #1 hit in 1967 on WTAC in Flint, making Scott Richard Case one of the hottest bands in Michigan. SRC was signed to Capitol Records shortly after, and in 1968, SRC released their first album, SRC. Using Motor City-style rock, SRC incorporated their influences of poetry, Eastern philosophy, and psychedelic rock. While the SRC album, especially the song Black Sheep, was quite popular in Michigan, the album never really reached national popularity. However, SRC's album Milestones was made up of songs that range from pop to R&B to psychedelic rock to Detroit-styled hard rock, and Milestones was extremely popular internationally and did very well in sales. After a few tours, Quackenbush was dropped from SRC, and SRC started to go downhill. SRC released their album Traveler's Tale, but it sold poorly because SRC had lost their distinctive sound that they had with Quackenbush as their lead guitarist. Though SRC put out new music and even reintroduced Gary Quackenbush to the band, SRC did not do as well as they used to in the music industry and split in 1973. Here is Grand Funk Railroad, which was an American hard rock band formed in 1969 by Don Brewer on drums and vocals on the left, Mel Shawsher, the bassist, in the middle, and Mark Farner on guitar, keyboards, harmonica, vocals on the right. The band started in Flint, Michigan with the manager Terry Knight, a powerful radio station DJ. The name of the band actually came from a play on the Grand Trunk Railroad, which is a railroad that ran all throughout Michigan. They were heavily influenced by Detroit rock and guitar legends like Jimi Hendrix. After signing with Capitol Records, Grand Funk Railroad released their first album, On Time, in 1969. The album was very popular, in part because they were constantly on the road touring and because they were marketed by their manager. As the band put out more music, they developed this blues-based style. In fact, in their song Closer to Home, they featured orchestra instruments, and it's the most popular of Grand Funk Railroad's singles to date. Grand Funk Railroad became super popular during the 70s after their hit album, We're an American Band. I think the combination of Detroit rock popularity as well as Grand Funk's incorporation of both folk and blues music into the hard rock scene is what made Grand Funk Railroad a staple of 70s rock scene. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day.